Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
This week on Muskogee Vision, we bring you images and sounds of the oasis in the Oaks, the Okmulgee Lake Recreational Area. The lake is a great place to fish or camp. For more information, hop on the internet and go to okmulgeeonline.com. On this week's program, we take a look at Creek citizens that have had great success in the world of financial advising. We speak with the MCN NAGPRA officer about the process of repatriation. And we learn about H.R. 1514, a bill that would sever all ties between the U.S. government and the Muskogee Creek Nation. Stay tuned after these messages, and thanks for watching Muskogee Vision.
The way we present ourselves sends a message.
It can be the loudest voice you have.
Let your song ring out. We are still here.
Remind the world of your ancestors. Make them never forget the resiliency of Native people.
These are threads.
These are threads.
These are threads. These are threads for the tread you make.
Hey guys, it's your Muskogee Vision Community Calendar. Dodgeball Tournament. Entry fee is $25, is for Muskogee Creek Nation employees only. 8-player roster, 10 max, 2 females on the roster. It will be April 23rd and 25th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Muskogee Creek Nation Muskogee Dome. Honoring Maxine Wildcat Barnett, Tuesday, April 16th at 6 p.m. at the Glenpool Conference Center, 12205 South Yukon Avenue in Glenpool. There will be a hiring event May 7th from 10 to 2 p.m. at the River Spirit Event Center. Address is 8330 South Riverside Parkway in Tulsa. Over 150 positions available. There will be on-site interviews. Elevate your career. Job fair hosted by the Muskogee Creek Nation Department of Health will be held on April 25th from 11 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. For more information, call Evelyn Gully at 918-429-9437. Prescription Drug Take Back. April 25th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Muskogee Creek Nation Light Horse Police Department. For more information, contact Muskogee Creek Nation Behavioral Health and Substance Abuse Prevention Programs at 918-758-1910. It's banner season. We are offering a variety of banner styles for parades, awards, graduates. 10% off all banners for schools and nonprofit organizations. For more information, contact Muskogee Creative. Email at creative@muskogeemedia.com. Gathering of Voices addressing sexual assault in Indian Country, Thursday, April 18th from 1 to 3:30. It will be held at the Muskogee Creek Nation Pavilion, southeast of the Muskogee Creek Nation Muskogee Dome. In case of inclement weather, the event will take place at the Green Country Votech. College of the Muskogee Nation will be hosting an Every Child Matters seminar with guest speaker Robert Block. For more information, contact Stephanie Ellis at 918-732-7869. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you at some of these great events.
Well, for 14 years, I was a publisher of the Native American Times newspaper, co-publisher. And after 2008, I decided I wanted to change careers. So I did a little research and came across Edward Jones. Someone had asked me to come work for her as a temporary position as an office manager. And I realized that this company and the positions in the company focus on their clients and helping people. And that's what I did when I published my newspaper. My goal was to help Indian country. And I was really excited to know that I could be passionate about a career that helps people. And so I worked as the office manager for 3.5 years while my kids got old enough, and then I applied for the financial advisor position. Well, one of the goals with Edward Jones is to work in the communities in our country and also have our financial advisors be a part of and look like the communities that we're reaching out to. I've been asked to be the diversity inclusion specialist for our region, and I am very proud of that. And so my goal is to reach out to Indian country to let them be aware of the positions open. And I've contacted the Cherokee Nation Phoenix. They did an article on one of our financial advisors who's a member of the Cherokee Nation. And then getting with you, of course, and letting the Muskogee Creek people know about the opportunity with Edward Jones.
The initial idea was put into my head. First time I sold my company and opened up my initial IRA with my financial advisor. And after a discussion with my financial advisor, she had hinted that I should try this. She said it seemed like I'd be a good role, but at that time I had other interests, and I actually went to work for the tribe as a tribal construction engineer. And so, and when I left the tribe and the situation came up again, another career change, I had several options, and this was one that came up and I hadn't even expected it. But it turns out that Edward Jones, they try to recruit talent, and they have a growth team out there that's their job is to recognize that talent and try to bring them into the Jones family. During the process of recruiting, like I said, my financial advisor had basically pretty much talked me into it and told me about all the options and the advantages of doing it. And as I was walking out of the office one day, I saw a picture on the wall, and I didn't know who it was, but it was a man holding a horse. And it turns out it was Ted Jones, one of the first managing partners of Edward Jones. And I heard the story behind that picture, and it said, in the 80s, an article came out in the Wall Street Journal announcing that Sam Walton was the richest man in America. And it went on to say in that article that Ted Jones could have been the richest man in America if he had not given his company to his employees. Our company is not a corporation, it's a partnership. So everybody is like a partner in this big firm. And so it went on in that picture that Ted Jones wrote a rebuttal to that article. In the article, he wrote back and said, "I am the richest man in America." He said, "I have a wife that loves me in spite of all my faults." Said, "I have 4 dogs, 2 that love everyone, 1 that loves only me, and 1 that loves no one but is very loyal." He said, "I have a horse that I love to ride around on the farm, and best of all, she comes to me when I call her." Said, "I have more than I can eat and a dry place to sleep. I enjoy my business. I love my home and my family, and money. I have a few close friends, and money has never been my God." So those are pretty profound words to me, coming from the founder of one of the initial founders of a large corporation or a large company like this. And so after reading those words, I decided, that's the kind of person I want to work for. Once you get into Jones, you realize that everybody in this organization wants to see you succeed, because we all are partners in a way. We all get, if the firm does good, you get firm bonuses. If your branch does good, you get branch bonuses. And so I could call up any financial advisor in this area, even out of state, and if I told them I had a question, they would do their best to try to answer the question for me or find the proper resources that I need. And so it's great. Everybody wants to see you succeed. They're always encouraging you. And and they encourage volunteering in your community. And as you know, I do a lot of things in our community anyway. I'm also on the school board. I help coach the youth wrestling, and those things that we do in the community, they really, they really like to see that. As it turns out, that's the best part of kind of being in here. This has provided another opportunity for me to help community members, not only members of the surrounding community, but also members of our tribe. Sometimes I'd say there are a lot of times our people are a little reluctant to talk to people that they're not familiar with. So, being a Creek citizen, a Native American in Okmulgee, the capital of the Creek Nation, it provides an avenue, an opportunity for people to come and talk to someone similar to them, and then I can show those opportunities and show them a guided approach to America's largest wealth building tool, which is the stock market. And so that's how it's been for me. Does that answer your question? All right.
The Native American Graves Protection Repatriation Act was enacted in 1990, and that allowed tribes to be able to repatriate human remains and sacred objects, associated funerary objects, objects of cultural patrimony, and sacred objects back from institutions, federal agencies, and those types of things that have those in their collections that were maybe encountered and over the years, and it's. Actually, they've been collecting Native American remains and things for, centuries. I think Thomas Jefferson was one of the first to dig into a burial mound and those types of things. And then there's several things that contribute to the large collection of NAGPRA items, like back during Indian Wars, for instance. I think the Army used to collect Native American specimens off the battlefields and those types of things for cranial studies and different things like that. So they've been even robbing graves and things. They've been doing that a long time. There's a long history of them collecting Native remains and things. So NAGPRA gives us opportunity to repatriate these items, and culture affiliate ourselves with them. And me as since due to the abundance of all these items, there's no real good source to know exactly how many. It's estimated 120,000 human remains are still there, but there's really no good way to get a count because a lot of them are in private collections, and a lot of them probably were traded on the black market overseas and things like that. So, these are just estimates. And so part of my job is when these federal agencies, they created in 1990, they created NAGPRA Act, and under that act, they created a database where our supposed to have databases, and all federal agencies and museums are supposed to look at their collections and ID, human remains or what could possibly be associated funerary objects or sacred objects and those types of things, and try to affiliate them with tribes that were probably indigenous in that area. And they're obligated to send out notices to us. And so my job is to look at those notices on the National NAGPRA database. They have databases for the culturally unidentified, for the associated funerary objects, for human remains and things. So they were basically supposed to develop, within 3 years, develop their inventories and summaries and send them out to tribes. And the tribes look at them and determine if, possibly these are affiliated with us or something like that. And then, some of the steps of NAGPRA is, after they identify everything, they send them out. They must consult with the tribes, under NAGPRA. And also they must send the notices to the tribes and describing all the cultural items and everything they have, and also what they consider cultural affiliation, and also state that these may be repatriated by the tribe. And then it's ran in the Federal Register, printed in the Federal Register for 30 days. And in the meantime, they have to consult with the tribes and determine if the tribes say, well, yeah, your cultural affiliation is right, that they are culture affiliated to us. And maybe if they can't cultural affiliate them, then, it's left, the burden is on the tribes to prove cultural affiliation. And you prove cultural affiliation by 10 lines of evidence, geographical, kinship, biological, archaeological, anthropological, linguistics, folklore, oral histories, and historical evidence and other evidence like expert opinion. Using those 10 lines of evidence is how we prove cultural affiliation. And when we get these notices and these inventories on National Database or something, or even, finds, inadvertent finds or whatever, we have to look at it and try to determine if they are cultural affiliated using these lines of evidence. So it takes a lot of research and, because a lot of them are really old. I mean, a lot of them come back, date back, 600 years ago and things. We have some that are historical times, but those are easy to prove because of historical evidence. But when it comes to the older stuff, it's harder to prove. Since 2003, Muskogee Nation has been doing reburials and repatriations. Since that, we've participated in 28 reburials in 6 different states, totaling the minimum number of individuals. Those are the human remains. We have reburied 848 individuals. The associated funerary objects and unassociated funerary objects total to 60,639. Today we have 23 active cases, and some of them are multiple sites. And these are just the agencies that we're working with right now. One of the issues or problems with NAGPRA is they have all these remains, but they won't, I guess, allow places for reburial locations. And our policy is we want them reburied as closest to where they came from, as close as possible where they came from. And in a lot of instances, that isn't possible because, you build lakes there, maybe the site may be underwater now or something like that. So, and then a lot of them, it just doesn't have any provenience. They don't really know where they come from. Maybe it just says it came from Georgia or something. But we try to rebury them close to where they came from. And working with federal agencies, it's hard to try to get them to establish reinterment locations. And just now, some of them are starting to do that. Like, for instance, the Forest Service. And the Corps is finally coming around to allow that. And a few other, I think, TVAs coming around to allow that. But it's been a long time coming, and that's one of the issues, that there's just so much and no place to put them. So we have a lot of them that are repatriated to us, what they call repatriated to us, but the transfer of control hasn't occurred yet because of a lack of reburial place. But and that's why we have 23 cases pending, because a lot of them are actually, are in our, I guess would be in our control, but just the transfer of control hasn't happened. They're still in possession of these agencies because we don't have a curation facility here to keep them, and nor do we want to bring them this far, west when they were out in the southeast,
On Tuesday, April 2nd, the Muskogee Creek Indian Freedmen Band held a press conference to announce H.R. 1514, introduced by U.S. Representative Danny Davis, 7th Congressional District of Illinois. This legislation seeks to sever United States government relations with the Creek Nation of Oklahoma until such time as the Creek Nation of Oklahoma restores full tribal citizenship to the Creek Freedmen. Muskogee media spoke with the Freedmen Band's attorney, Demario Solomon Simmons, about the legislation.
So I first got involved legally in this issue while I was in law school back in the early 2000s. Got involved with Marilyn Vann and others like Rhonda, who was dealing with this issue, and I helped host an issue or a symposium at the law school, University of Oklahoma, working with Professor Lindsay Robertson at the time. And so then I stayed involved in the issue once I graduated from law school. There was a case that had just been filed by 2 individuals by the name of Ron Graham and Fred Johnson, and they were just individuals, pro se, and me and a friend of mine who had just graduated from law school got involved, had no idea how big of an issue it would become, and it really just became much larger than we ever imagined. And we litigated that case for about 3.5 years, actually had a trial in front of Judge Moore at the time. I think it was like an 8 or 9 day trial. We introduced thousands of pages of evidence. We had the foremost expert on Creek Freedmen issues, Dr. Daniel Littlefield, came and testified as our expert, and we believe we proved our case. Unfortunately, Judge Moore didn't rule on all the issues, but he did rule on the issue that our clients, basically their due process rights were violated. Unfortunately, the Creek Nation Citizenship Office refused to follow the judge's order, and I'm simplifying here. And at the time, the Creek Nation appealed that order to the Creek Nation Supreme Court. I think it was on appeal for over a year, and then we got the decision that just said, look, you know, they reversed the issue. We believe that the vote in 1979 was illegal, but beyond that, there were certain statutes that were passed by the Creek Nation that specifically stated you can use a number of different roles to prove your Creek lineage, your Creek history. And so all my clients at the time, they had ancestors on those roles, and we proved that, we showed that. We also showed that the Creek Nation systematically would not allow Creek freedmen to use those roles, even though that was the actual Creek law from 1981 to 2003, 2004. That was the actual Creek law, that if you can show an ancestor on one of these rolls and show an ancestor on the 1906 rolls, then you were eligible for Creek citizenship. I could show that. Everyone I knew could show that. Yet if you said you were a freedman descendant, they will automatically summarily say you're not eligible, you're not Indian. And so we proved that in our case, and that's why it was so disappointing that the Supreme Court just turned its back on Creek Nation law. And I think as a nation of laws, it's important, even when people don't agree with them, this is the law. Just like the Treaty of 1866, Article 2 is the law. After that decision, people continued to organize, continued to work, particularly Rhonda and Sharon and Jeff and many of the leaders of the organization. They continue to put on symposiums. They continue to advocate to elected officials. And that went on for about 10 years. And while that was happening, as you know, the Cherokee Freedmen case was working its way through the court system and through the legislative system. And in August of 2017, everyone was kind of waiting to see how that Cherokee Freedmen case was going to turn out, because we had the indication, I think around 2015, that the judge was going to rule on the ultimate issue: is the treaty still good law? And once that judge ruled on August 30th, 2017, it made it very, very clear that that treaty was still the good law that mandated freedmen should have full citizenship rights. At that point, we said, look, this is our time now to move forward, because it's basically the same treaty language. In fact, I would say that Article 2 in the Creek Treaty is actually stronger than the Cherokee Freedmen language. And so we started working there, and a lot of people who hear this issue, they're fascinated. They don't know it, they can't believe it, and they don't understand it. They don't understand why the Creek Nation is doing this to its own people. They don't understand why the Creek Nation would not want to embrace their own people, to strengthen their numbers, strengthen their intellectual capacity. I think so many people, small-minded people, look at this as something that's going to take away from the nation, but it's going to add to the nation. And so when we talk to people, they say, what's the problem here? You guys can document who you are. I mean, you look at my family. I was a citizen. My family was a citizen not because of the treaty, but already citizens. You know, my ancestor was one of the guys who signed the treaty. And now you tell me I don't have the right to be in the nation? I mean, it's preposterous. The lawsuit that was recently settled back in 2016, based upon land that was taken after we moved to Oklahoma, right? Some of that land that was taken was Creek Freedmen land. So that means that the Creek Nation was paid money for land that the Creek Freedmen are entitled to, but yet they haven't received any of it. Now, in some circles, that's theft, that's fraud. You know, you're submitting this claim on behalf of one person, but then you keeping all the proceeds and telling other people, well, I know you were a member then when we had the claim, but you're not a member now, so we're just gonna pocket the money. I mean, I don't see how any person of good faith, of goodwill, could possibly think that's fair. Representative Davis was adamant that, listen, if the Creek Nation wants to discriminate and break U.S. law and discriminate based on race, then why should we as a United States government recognize this lawless entity? Because it's not operating within the laws of our nation and within the laws of our agreement, Article 2 of the treaty. And so yes, that would take away the actual recognition from the United States government until the Creek Nation fulfilled its end of the bargain, did what it's supposed to do, and followed the law. I mean, it's not rocket science, right? It's just saying, listen, in America, you cannot say we don't want these people because they're black. You can't say that. And that's exactly what the Creek Nation says. I have hundreds of letters where it says that. You're not eligible because you are a Negro. Therefore, you're not eligible to be in our nation. You can't do that in America, period. The Creek Nation is a political entity. Just like the United States is a political entity. I mean, I assume you're a U.S. citizen, I'm a U.S. citizen, she's a U.S. citizen, and we all look different. But we're all 100% blood U.S. citizens. It's the same concept from a legal standpoint of the Creek Nation. Now we can get into the other histories and who was here when Columbus got here, and I'm happy to have that discussion because I believe I was here. And I believe I can substantiate that with the documentation and my family. But the point is that we're talking about is as a political entity, you do not have the right, the legal right in America to discriminate against people based upon their race. And that is what's happening here. And the Treaty of 1866, Article 2, makes it very clear that Creek freedmen and those who consider Creek freedmen descendants have every right to be full citizens as any other Creek.
Muskogee Media contacted MCN Principal Chief James Floyd for comment and received the following statement. Quote, "We are still reviewing HR in its entirety. We note, however, that we are involved in litigation on this subject matter in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia, have filed a motion to dismiss the plaintiff's claims, as has the United States government, and we are currently awaiting a decision from the court." End quote. Stay with Muskogee Vision and Muskogee Media for more updates on this developing story.
We want to thank everyone that made today's episode possible. Mado. As we sign off for today, we leave you with the images and sounds of Okmulgee Lake, and remember that Mado means thank you and Hadamji Hijathis means see you later.